Chapter 29. Making Over Oneself. Now comes the question, in what respect shall I make myself over? And this is a question that I cannot answer for you, because each one of you would have to be answered differently, and I would have to understand the requirements of each particular case before I could answer. But after all, each and every man or woman who studies these chapters has a very good idea of his or her particular strong or weak points of character. Each one knows just about what qualities need to be strengthened and built up, just which ones need to be restrained. Every person knows his shortcomings in the lines of personal qualities or character, for he or she has been forced to this knowledge by coming in contact with the world. If you are considering the question of character architecture in your own case, I would advise a strict self-examination with a pencil and paper, in which you must set down the degree of development of each particular quality without fear or favor toward yourself. When you have done this, you will know just how to proceed. You will have given yourself a mental diagnosis. I herewith give you a general list of qualities, etc., as an aid in this work of self-examination, as a basis of mental architecture. In using it, ask yourself the question, what degree of this quality do I possess? And answer the question honestly. Below, I have given you a list of the faculties usually given in works on phrenology, which will aid you very materially in preparing your report on yourself. Each faculty relates to some quality of character possessed by you and regarding which you are asking yourself the question mentioned above. They include sexuality, ideality, friendship, mirthfulness, love of life, sense of size, physical appetites, sense of order, cautiousness, memory, firmness, language, faith, judging human nature, ingenuity, parental love, imitation, stick-to-itiveness, sense of shape, determination, sense of color, secretiveness, sense of locality, self-esteem, musical taste, hope, comparison, sympathy, domestic qualities, sublimity, love of places, observation, fighting qualities, sense of weight, acquisitiveness, sense of number, love of praise, sense of time, integrity, originality, veneration, agreeableness. Every one of the above-mentioned faculties or qualities may be increased or decreased by the practice of the methods given in this lesson. Autosuggestion, visualization, and acting out the part. That triple method of character architecture will enable anyone to make himself over in any one or more of the above qualities. You will, of course, always remember that the methods named act in the direction of stimulating the growth of the brain cells in the particular centers, areas and regions in which the particular faculty or quality is manifested. The immediate cause of the growth of the brain cells is the desire of the individual manifesting itself along physical lines, coupled with the law of nature which causes increased physical or mental growth in accordance with necessity or need. The earnest desire, heightened by visualization and autosuggestion, stimulates the brain centers manifesting the desired qualities. and by so doing causes a more rapid production of new cells and the greater development of the existing ones. Then the acting out the part with its physical manifestations creates a direct demand upon the brain for means of manifestation, and the brain responds by growing additional cells to meet the demand. There is in nature a law that tends to furnish to the organism that which is needed for its development and necessities. The horse has evolved from a three-toed animal into a one-toed one in response to the demands of its environments and the necessities of its life. Birds of prey have claws and beaks adapted to their needs and wants. Beasts of prey have great teeth, claws, and shape of body adapted to their wants and necessities. And so it is all through nature. But remember this, that animals constantly change as their environments change. For nature always is ready to supply that which is demanded by the necessities of the organism. Evolution gives us many convincing illustrations of this fact, which I regret not being able to mention here. If a part of the body is brought into unaccustomed use, it becomes tired at first, and then nature sends to its relief increased nutrition and development, so that in time it can meet the new requirements with ease. And so it is in this matter of the brain cells. Make a demand upon nature for increased power along certain lines, and she responds. And the way to make the demand for new brain cells in order to manifest certain qualities to a higher degree is to follow the methods given you herein: autosuggestion, visualization, and acting out the part. I trust that you now understand not only the how of this subject, but also the why of it. It is impossible in the space of a few chapters to give detailed instructions regarding the development of each separate faculty of the mind. That would require a good-sized book by itself, but I have given you the general principles and directions, and you should be able to work out the rest of the problem yourself. I shall, however, give you the special directions for the development of the particular qualities most necessary to the dynamic individual mentioned in the chapters on personal influence. Before proceeding to this last mentioned phase of the work, however, I wish to say that not only may one make himself over by the methods given, but he may make over other people by the same methods applied in the forms of suggestive treatment. This is particularly true in the case of children, whose characters are extremely plastic and who yield readily to constructive shaping and guidance. It is not necessary for me to go into this matter in detail, for in my chapters on mental suggestions and mental therapeutics, as well as in the present lesson, I give the principles of such treatment and the methods of applying the same. I trust that you have paid sufficient attention to what has been taught to be able to understand and apply this form of suggestive treatment to others. What I have said about treating the John Smith part of you is true when you are actually treating others. The same principles apply. In addition to these, you may advantageously use treatments by mentative currents, which will tend to induce in the mind of the other person the desired mental state, which in time will result in the production of new brain cells needed to establish the mental character cure. In treating others for a change of character, proceed exactly as you would in treating them for a physical ailment. The principle is the same, for the trouble arises from a similar underlying cause. In both cases, you are treating mind, remember? And now to the building up of the dynamic individual. We have seen what he was like, and now we must try to make ourselves over to resemble him. The method given in the present chapter and the one immediately following apply to this work course. Let us now form a mental picture of the dynamic individual and see what qualities he possesses, and then learn how to develop and cultivate those qualities. Our dynamic individual is possessed of a strong desire. He knows how to want a thing the right way, no mere wishing or sighing for a thing. When he wants a thing, he wants it. We all think that we want things, but the majority only want them in a half-hearted way. The flame of desire burns feebly and gives little light or heat. One of the first things you will notice in coming in personal contact with the men who do things in the world is that they are filled with that intense, eager, longing, craving, hungry, ravenous desire that urges them on to mighty effort and achievement, which makes them demand things instead of begging for them. Even among the animals that we speak of as strong and masterful, you will find that this desire quality is strong, so much so that it impresses itself in their every movement and action. And on the other hand, you will find a lack of the same quality in the species of animals that are preyed upon, hunted and devoured by the others. This class of weak, desired animals impress us as weak and spiritless. And so it is with men. No one ever did anything or got anything unless he was filled with a strong, hungry desire for that thing. If a man feels a hunger for attainment, just as he feels a hunger for his meals, he will make mighty effort to satisfy that hunger. Just think of what you would do to satisfy a craving hunger. Well, these men feel the same way about other things for which they are hungry. Desire is a form of hunger, and the hungrier a man is for a thing, the more desire force will be manifested, and the greater efforts will he make to get that thing. People have fallen into the habit of speaking and thinking of desire as an unworthy, low animal, selfish quality. But they are seeing only a half-truth while thinking that they are seeing the whole thing. They seek to escape by speaking of high desires, aspirations, ambition, zeal, ardor, love, and a number of similar terms. But these things are merely our old friend, desire, with a new name. Let me give you a few words used in speaking of some form of desire. Here they are. Desire, wish, want, need, exigency, mind, inclination, leaning, bent, animus, partiality, perchance, predilection, propensity, willingness, liking, love, fondness, relish, longing, hankering, solicitude, anxiety, yearning, coveting, aspiration, ambition, eagerness, zeal, ardor, appetite, appetency, hunger, thirst, keenness, longing, craving, etc. Quite a formidable list. The truth is that all the feelings that incite one to action of any kind or sort are forms of desire. Without desire, one would cease absolutely from action. Preceding every action there must be desire, either conscious or unconscious. Even those people who make a virtue of renunciation of desire and who claim to have conquered desire absolutely are acting in response to a more subtle form of desire. How is this, you ask? Well, simply because they are carrying out a desire not to desire certain other things. Desire is at the bottom of the renunciation, just as it is at the bottom of the very desires they wish to renounce. This must be so always, for desire is a fundamental natural law, and is always manifest. Not only in the doing of things is desire manifest, but also in the refraining from doing the same things. One man desires to smoke, another desires not to do so. Desire in both cases, lack of desire to do a certain thing, simply means a desire to pursue an opposite course of conduct and action. And so it goes. Desire is manifest in every action and refraining from action, so long as one has the capacity for action. Nothing has ever been done, created, or manifested without desire. The very atoms manifest desire in their combinations, and so all the universe has been built up through the operation of the law of desire and the law of will, both of which are phases of the one law. Desire underlies all life. It rests in the very heart of life itself, and the greater the manifestation of vitality, the greater the force of desire. But remember always that there are wise desires and unwise desires, and the dynamic individual learns to distinguish between the wise and the unwise desire, between the good and the bad ones, and governs himself accordingly. He examines his desires, and picking out the good and wise, he discards the bad and unwise ones. Then he proceeds to develop and build up the ones he has selected. And how does our dynamic individual develop his desires when desire in itself is not a separate mental faculty, but instead manifests through and in each faculty? He proceeds to hold up to it the mental image of the things to be desired, and the desire force within him flows forth and manifests more and more energy according to the stimulus. Desire force is always inherent in the person, just as is willpower, but both need an incentive to action, a stimulus to manifestation. It is a well-known law of psychology that desire flows out and manifests itself in response to an object. This object of desire is always something that affords pleasure, satisfaction, or content to the individual, or else that will rid him of pain, discontent, discomfort, or dissatisfaction, either immediate or remote in both instances. And sometimes indirectly, that is, the pleasure or pain may be occasioned by the pleasures or pain, immediate or remote, of some other person in which the original person is interested. The clearer the mental image of the object of desire, the greater will be the degree of the desire manifested. All other things being equal, a child may be filled with discontent. It wants something but does not know what it wants. Then the child thinks, toys, and it begins to want still harder. Then it sees a toy, and then its want becomes very intense. One may feel hungry in a degree, but when he sees some particular object of taste, the hunger becomes far more intense. And so it follows that if one will keep on presenting to his desire this suggestion and mental image of the object, then will the desire begin to burn more fiercely and strongly, and may be cultivated to almost any degree. You know how one may awaken desire in another this way, by means of suggestion and by presenting the mental image of the object in conversation, etc. How many of us know to our cost how the sight of an unthought of thing makes us begin to hanker after it and long for it. The book agent plays upon this trait of character in us, and so does the department store man on bargain days and by his window displays. You will remember what I told you in the chapters of suggestion about the steps in salesmanship, the important point being to arouse desire in the customer, and what I said about the same thing in the case of the advertiser. This idea underlies all forms of suggestive influence and is manifest in the lives of every one of us, every day of our lives. And if this be so, can you not see that by autosuggestion you may arouse the same degree of desire in yourselves that others arouse in you and you in others? The threefold method, autosuggestion, visualization, and acting out the part, will develop desire in you. In autosuggestion along these lines, you must treat yourself for desire. Tell the John Smith part of you how much he desires this or that, how much he aspires to this or that, how strong is his ambition for this and that, etc. Then visualize the object, that is, the thing desired, until you can see it plainly and clearly. See yourself in possession of it, or as having attained it. Keep this mental image always with you, for it will act powerfully in arousing your desire force. Then act out the idea of gaining headway and moving on to the possession or attainment. Cultivate the outward actions and demeanor of the man who has arrived. If you are after success, then act out the part of the successful man. You need not be told why, after what I have said. In conclusion, I will again remind you that the objects of this development of desire are: 1. That your will may be called into play, and 2. That your desire force may be set into activity and thus begin in its drawing, attracting work. Read what I have said about desire force in the previous chapters. Now, do not dismiss this part of the subject lightly. It is most important to you. Desire and will are the two phases of mind power, and you must develop both of them in order to get the best results. Keep the flame of the right desire ever burning brightly. Feed its lamp with the ideas of the objects of desire by autosuggestion, visualization, and acting out. Remember my parting words about desire. The first thing in the direction of doing things or getting things is to want the things hard enough. A strong, ardent, keen desire will clear away the undergrowth of the path of success. It will attract you to the people and things needed for its satisfaction, and will attract to you the people, things, circumstances, environments, etc., needed for its satisfaction. Desire is the soul of the law of attraction. And now let us consider the second attribute of our dynamic individual. It is willpower. Our man is an example of living will. He is filled with the force of action. He is determined. He keeps his will on an object just as a machinist keeps his chisel on the hard metal, letting it bite in deeper and deeper until the desired impression and end is obtained. I've told you how the will is always set into operation by the urge of desire. When you develop and cultivate desire, you are doing much to cultivate willpower. So I need not repeat this part of the process. I have just told it to you under the head of desire. But there is another feature about the use of will which I must call to your attention. It is the feature of its determined application and manifestation. It is all very well to have a strong will, but it will avail you nothing unless you learn how to apply it. The secret of the resolute will lies in determination and persistency. And the first thing to be acquired is the capacity for attention. Writers on psychology will tell you that a tenacious attention is one of the strongest factors of a cultivated will. That is it. You must acquire tenacity of attention. You must acquire the art of patiently dwelling upon a thing until you accomplish your purpose. You must learn to do things thoroughly and completely. You must learn to concentrate your will upon a thing and not allow it to be distracted or to wander off until you do what you set out to do. You must cultivate stability, decision, perseverance, tenacity, and stick-to-itiveness. And you can do all these things by the triple method given in this chapters. Each quality is capable of cultivation and development in the same way. You can do these things if you want it hard enough. First, stir up your desire to accomplish the task. Then, will that you shall do it, then do it. Thousands of others have done these things, and so may you, if you are an individual and are not a mere personal shadow. I shall now give you some advice regarding will development, to which I ask you pay the closest attention. The first obstacle to be overcome in the work of cultivating willpower is to overcome the old habits of weak will and to replace them by a new habits of strong will. This question of habit is a most important one, for we are all more or less slaves to habit. Habit is second nature, which is often much stronger than our ordinary natural impulse. In order to develop the dominant will, you must cultivate some new habits, and of these things I shall now speak. The following rules for the development of new habits will prove of great benefit to you, if you will study them carefully and then put them into practice. Rule 1. Get control of your physical channels of expression and master the physical expression connected with the mental state you are trying to develop. For instance, if you are trying to develop your will along the lines of self-reliance, confidence, fearlessness, etc., the first thing for you to do is to get a perfect control of the muscles by which the physical manifestations or expressions of these feelings are shown. Get control of the muscles of your shoulders that you may throw them back manfully. Look out for the stooping attitude of lack of confidence. Then get control of the muscles by which you hold your head up, with eyes up front, gazing at the world fearlessly in the face. Get control of the muscles of the legs by which you will be able to walk firmly as a positive man or woman should. Get control of your vocal organs, to which you may speak in resonant, vibrant tones which compel attention and inspire respect. Get yourself well in hand physically in order to manifest these outward forms of will, and you will clear a path for the mind power to manifest itself, and will make the work of the will much easier. But it takes will to do these things, and you must be prepared to use it. Keep your attention on these outward forms of expression until you acquire the habit and make it second nature. Rule 2. Learn to concentrate. By so doing, you will be able to focus your will upon any object desired, and thus get the greatest effect. In using the will, endeavor to make it one-pointed, as the Orientals say. That is, have the object that you want firmly in mind, and then focus the will firmly upon that object. Cast from your mind all ideas and thoughts not in harmony with the one idea upon which you are concentrating your will. In the beginning, it will be well to avoid all persons, environments, etc., calculated to distract you from the main idea. But after a bit, you will be able to interpose a resistance to these distracting things and banish them from you by a mental command. While acquiring will in this way, you will find that it often takes even more will to turn away from these outside objects than to follow your main object. You must learn to master these temptations, even if in so doing you find it necessary to act like Ulysses, who made his companions stopped up their ears with wax, lest they be fascinated by the song of the sirens. Rule 3. In acquiring a will habit, use every occasion in order to repeat the effort of the will along the lines of the habit. Give your will much exercise. Every time you do a certain thing, the easier does it becomes to repeat it, for the habit becomes more firmly established. Habit is a form of impression, and the oftener you sink the dye of the will into the wax of the mind, the deeper is the impression. Exercise, 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 practice, practice. Rule 4. The greatest struggle is at the beginning of the practice or formation of a new will habit. Here one has to fight with all his might. But the first battle, well won, the after-fights moderate, and finally become mere skirmishes. Hence it behooves one to gird on his armor firmly and grasp his sword with strength at this first fight. Let one stop smoking or drinking, for instance, and he will find that 3/4 of the entire struggle is condensed in the fight of the first week, if not the first day. Remember the case of Rip Van Winkle with his, well, this glass don't count. He never could get started. And beware of the single sleep at the start, for such sleeps weakens one more than he can regain in the whole day of success. After having made up your will to acquire a habit, you must not allow a single sleep for this reason. A well-known writer on the subject has compared these sleeps to a ball of cord which one is endeavoring to wind. Each drop of the ball unwinds more than many windings can replace. Rule 5. Endeavor to fix the habits as a strong mental impression by any and every means that suggest themselves to you. When this habit becomes firmly impressed upon your mind, you will find it most natural and easy to act along its lines, and most difficult to break away from it or to act contrary to it. You are building second nature, remember. Rule 6. Look before you leap. And be sure you're right, then go ahead. Always take a good look at a thing before plunging in. Give it the benefit of your judgment and do not be carried away by the judgment of others. Use your reason and judgment. That's why you have them. But after once having decided a thing is right for you to do, then you must learn to go ahead to the finish. Learn to place your hand upon the plow and look not backward. Learn to control your willpower and do not let it leap into action until you are sure it is right to do so. All of this means rigid self-control and mastery of one's moods as well as one's passions and emotions. Guard yourself against yourself, and also guard your desire from the influences of others, for through your desires your will is called into action. Children, savages, and underdeveloped individuals manifest little or no mastery over their desires, but allow themselves to be affected by every little wave from within or without, and let their will fly into action in response thereto. The individual learns to inhibit, that is to check, restrain, hold back, forbid, prohibit, etc., emotional states and feelings. By so doing, he will hold his willpower under control for use when it is advisable. Pull the trigger of your willpower yourself after you've taken deliberate aim at some worthwhile object. Do not allow others to pull it for you, nor do you yourself pull it in response to a whim, a dare, an unrestrained feeling. A useful rule along this line is given by Professor Hafting, who says, even if we cannot prevent a feeling from arising, we may possibly prevent it from spreading by inhibiting the organic movement which accompanies it, the indulgence in which augments it. In other words, restrain the physical action and the feeling dies. This idea of physical expression and acting out runs shoulder to shoulder with the idea of mental states all through the subject of psychology. Rule 7. Keep the mind filled with mental pictures of the thing which you wish to become a habit. For by so doing you are constantly adding oil to the flame of desire, and the desire is the cause of the manifestation of will. The feminine desire asks, and the masculine will seek to gratify the request of his mate in any direction indicated by her. Therefore, the more she sees what she wants, the more she asks, and the more she asks, the more eager does he become to please her. The apple was shown Eve, then she told Adam, and asked him to take a bite. And then Adam ate, and the mischief was done. But this rule works for good as well as for bad. It's a poor rule that won't work both ways, but the principle is the same in both good and evil cases. Rule 8. Act out the habit as often as possible, and as well as possible. Learn to go through the motions until the part becomes perfect and easily performed. I don't have to tell you students the reasons for this again. It should be an old story with you by now. Rule 9. Practice doing disagreeable things. This will strengthen the will wonderfully, for reasons that should be apparent to every student. What would be the condition of your muscles if you never had to use them? And what will be the condition of your will if you never have to exercise it by doing something unpleasant or disagreeable? Anyone, even the weakest, can do a thing along the lines of non-resistance, pleasant, agreeable things without oppositions or resistance. But it takes a true man or woman, a true individual, to do things against resistance from without or from within. And when one has learned to master himself, that is his own moods and feelings, then he is able to master the outside world, and not until then either. Therefore, often set yourself in an unpleasant or disagreeable task to perform, for by so doing you acquire mental muscle, which is but another name for will. Professor James, the eminent psychologist, advises his readers to systematically exercise themselves in the direction of doing some particular thing for no other reason than that they would rather not do it. Even if the task be nothing more than rising and giving up a seat in the streetcar when you want to retain it very much indeed. Professor James compares Phil's exercise to the paying the premiums on insurance on one's property. One is laying up reserve resources for a day of need. He tells us that a man who trains himself in this way can be counted upon in any emergency, and may count on himself to manifest willpower. As Professor Halleck says, in speaking of such a man, while another would be still crying over spilt milk, the possessor of such a will has already begun to milk another cow. The men who have attained great successes have, in nearly every case, so trained their wills that they can undertake a difficult or disagreeable task with a minimum of effort. They have acquired the habit. When one learns to say yes or no to himself, he can say yes or no to others with the greatest force. Rule 10. Cultivate fixity of purpose. The man of strong will must learn to see an object ahead of him, and then to want it hard enough, and then to fix his will upon it, and to hold it there while he moves to it in as a straight line as possible. But no matter how he may have to swerve from his straight line of approach by unforeseen obstacles, nor how many times he may stumble, he still always remembers what he is after, and he keeps after it. The shifting, changeable sort of men manifest but little will and accomplish little or nothing. The successful men are those who know what they want and never forget it. It may take them some time to find out just what they do want, but when once they find it out, they hold firmly to it to the end, with an invincible determination and unswerving purpose, and these qualities always win in the long run, if for no other reason than because so few possess them, and the majority of men get tired of the struggle and drop out of the race. It's the fellow with the staying qualities that pulls through in the end, no matter how much of a start the others may have had on him in the beginning. Concentrate and cultivate strength of character and persistence. Mind Power, Chapter 30, Mind Building. I shall now briefly run over the mental faculties most necessary to be developed by the man who wishes to gain the dynamic qualities. I shall add a few words of advice regarding the development of each of the said faculties. Number 1. Continuity. This faculty has been so named by the phrenologists and defined as the faculty that enables a man to stick to it until it is done, that gives him patience to complete his task, that gives him stability. Its lack makes a man restless, changeable, shifting, disconnected, scattered, unstable, and unreliable. To cultivate this faculty, follow the threefold method in the direction of concentrating, dwelling upon, and sticking to a matter once undertaken, doing thorough work, and fighting to make a change. Number 2. Vitality. This faculty is named by phrenologists as the one that makes a person tenacious of life, and which causes him to fight off death, sickness, and weakness. This is a necessary faculty for the dynamic individual to develop, for by so doing, he not only becomes stronger, but also imparts a certain quality of strength and resistance to his personality that will be felt by others. As an example, contrast the fight for life in an animal of the cat family, and then the lack of it in a sheep or rabbit. Then think which of them is more respected and regarded in the world of animals. By all means, cultivate that resolute fight for life that is manifested by all strong creatures. Try the threefold method along the lines of holding on to life and manifesting the will to live. Number 3, combativeness. This phrenological faculty manifests in the direction of resistance, opposition, courage, defensiveness, defiance, spirit, self-protection, determination, let me alone, get out of my way, etc. It goes with all strong characters. It is true that its perversion renders one a nuisance and a quarrelsome and brawling person, and such state is to be avoided. But its absence makes of one a human doormat, and the world proceeds to wipe its feet on him. The dynamic individual must have this faculty well developed and also well controlled. It must be the case of the soft voice and the big stick, of which we have heard so much of late. The world loves the brave man and hates a coward, and this means mental bravery and mental cowardice, principally in these days of mental struggle. By all means, learn to stand up like a man, and looking the world firmly and calmly in the face, say in the words of the old verse, "Come on, come on, come all, this rock shall fly from its firm base, and soon as I." Don't be a brawler, but don't be a weakling. Avoid the rabbit and sheep mental attitude. Develop this faculty by the threefold method along the lines of debate, argument, mental conflict, mental resistance, asserting your individuality, insisting upon your rights, self-confidence, self-assertion, and I can and I will. Number 4, destructiveness. This name is not well chosen, in my opinion, by the phrenologists, but I shall not attempt to change it here. It is used by them to indicate the faculty that manifests in determination to overcome obstacles, beating down resistance, brushing away barriers, making headway, pushing to the front, clearing away underbrush, pushing through the crowd, holding your own, etc. Its perversion renders one a hated man, and one who is not sufficiently regardful of the rights of others, and whom it becomes the duty of society to restrain. But still it is a quality that is needed by the dynamic individual, lest he allow himself to be walked over with impunity, outraged and treated with contempt by the world, or which will cause him to be pushed aside and imposed upon. Its absence also causes one to be overcome with impotence when obstacles confront him or resistance show itself. This absence causes one to be a whining "I can't" person, and also causes one to be too much subject to precedence, pretended authority, etc., and kills off his originality. To develop this faculty, use the threefold method along the lines of breaking new mental ground, striking out into new paths, breaking down barriers, overcoming restraint, holding your own, pushing to the front, even if you have to elbow the crowd. Number 5, acquisitiveness. This term is used by phrenologists to indicate the faculty which manifests in getting, acquiring, possessing, drawing to oneself, obtaining, and securing desired things. It may be perverted into miserliness, penuriousness, meanness, hoggishness, etc., but nevertheless its proper use and development is necessary. Unless one has a desire to have and to hold, he will not be apt to make any progress in the world. One must want to get things before he will act energetically. And so far as money is concerned, while I freely admit the evils of an extreme greed and desire in this respect, yet I am just as fully convinced that a man must possess a certain amount of money-wanting quality in order to make him an active center of force. For when one wants money, he really wants the things that the money buys. Money stands for nearly all that is necessary for a man's well-being and sustenance. Money in itself is nothing, and a man is a fool who loves or seeks it for itself. But it is also a symbol of almost everything else, and without it he can get practically nothing else. So, just as I think it justifiable and proper for a plant to desire and seek and draw to itself the sustenance of the soil, air, water, and sunlight, so do I think it proper, desirable, and praiseworthy for a man to desire and insist upon drawing to himself the proper sustenance of life, and money means just that to the sane man and nothing more. The people who decry this desire for money are principally those who either 1. Have failed to accumulate money themselves by reasons of lacking the necessary quality, the really unfortunate ones who do not join in the condemnation of the desire, or 2. Those who have inherited money of which they did not know the labor, excitement, or satisfaction of making for themselves, and who therefore grow righteously disgusted at the money which they did not have to use their heads or hands to acquire. These people are like those who take no exercise and get indigestion at the sight of a good dinner, while those who have worked well come to the dinner with a good appetite and cannot understand the sick feeling of the others. It is a law of nature that makes both of these classes of people sick at the sight of that for which they have not worked. Or 3, that class of parasites who live by hard work of others, doing nothing themselves, and deeming themselves far above those muckers or money grubbers who work and toil and labor to support these parasites. People are all after money, even blessed mothers, sons, and daughters of them, in one way or another. What is the use of denying it? Some day we may have better economic conditions. I pray to God that we may. But until then, all of us must chase the nimble dollar to the best of our ability. For unless a man does this thing, then shall he not eat, nor be clothed, nor have shelter, no books, no music, nor anything else that makes life worth living for. One who thinks and feels. Therefore, I feel justified in saying to you, develop a normal degree of acquisitiveness if you wish to amount to anything in the world's work. Develop it by the threefold method along the lines of realization of what it means and what it will do for you in this stage of the world's economic evolution. But don't be a hog. To be sure, while you're get all you can, but give the other fellow a chance. Live and let live. 6. Secretiveness. This is the name given by the phrenologists to the faculty that manifests as policy, tact, concealment, self-repression, self-restraint, etc. Its perversion leads to deceit, double-dealing, duplicity, lying, false living, etc. But a certain amount of it is necessary lest one fall into the error of wearing his heart on his sleeve transparent simplicity, loose-mouthedness, blabbing, lacking ordinary prudence, indiscretions, etc. Develop this faculty by the threefold method along the lines of tact, diplomacy, reticence, cautiousness, politeness, etc. The main object being to acquire the faculty of keeping your own secrets, keeping your affairs to yourself, avoiding that leakiness that has ruined so many men and women. Regarding this and women, I would say that my business experience has taught me that in spite of the alleged secret telling of women, it is true that the women stenographers in an office are far less liable to disclose the employer's secrets than are the men employees. And then again, while a woman may have a tendency to pass on a secret, still she knows how to keep certain secrets that concerns herself or the man she loves or the child she loves in a manner and in ways that cause a man's hair to rise in bewilderment. 7. Cautiousness. This faculty manifests in carefulness, prudence, watchfulness, foresight, judgment, etc. Perverted, it leads to timidity, irresolution, etc., but a certain amount of it is necessary. One should learn to use judgment and reason to be sure he is right before going ahead. If deficient in this quality, develop it by a threefold method along the lines of care, prudence, watchfulness, thought, use of judgment, etc., and by looking before you leap. 8. Approbativeness. This faculty manifests in a desire for approval, praise, flattery, fame, show and ceremony connected with one's personality. It is seen frequently in a perverted sense. Very few of us need to develop this quality. We have enough or more than enough of it already. If you wish to restrain this faculty, you may use the threefold method along the lines of indifference to lies, approval, or opinions. What does it matter anyway? They say. What do they say? Let them say. Do not worry about it. Your friends will not care, and your enemies will persist anyway. So, what's the use? What care I for the opinions of the crowd anyway? They are 95% fools at the best of times. Learn to live your own life and stand upon your own feet. Other people would like to even breathe for you if you would let them, but say no to them and shake them off when they bother you. You've got to live your own life, and why bother with the people who are always telling you, you mustn't do it this way, do it as I say, when their own lives are glaring examples of the folly of their way. Pick out a right object, follow a right course, and let the crowd mind its own business, if it will. And if it won't, forget it. You will find it ready enough to shower favors upon you, and you will finally succeed. And do not be deceived by its praise or flattery. The same people who are singing your praises today will damn you tomorrow if occasion offers. They are throwing roses at you now. Tomorrow they may throw rocks with equal grace and delight. Don't be a slave to the crowd or its opinions. Make yourself a master of it if you would rule it. It is managed through its selfish fears and interest, rather than through its love. It has a mean trick of turning on the thing it loves and tearing it to pieces, just as a female spider devours her mate. But when it fears, well then, it lets you alone. Not high spiritual teaching, perhaps, but a bit of worldly wisdom. Shake off the crowd from your heels. You mind your own business and tell it to do the same, and look it in the eye while you are telling it to. It will understand you if you don't truckle to it, but never cringe to it, else it will rend you to pieces. 10. Self-esteem. This is the faculty of self-respect, self-reliance, self-love, etc. Perverted, it means tyranny, superciliousness, imperiousness, and other forms of egotism carried to extremes. This quality is necessary to be developed normally. One must learn to respect himself or herself, value himself or herself, and rely upon himself or herself, love himself or herself, hold his or her head high, look the world in the face, believe in himself or herself, and take his own place in the world without false modesty or shrinking. Develop it by the threefold method along the lines of realizing just what you are, a center of energy, power, and strength in the universal ocean of mind power. Think of yourself in the word of Black Hawk, the Indian chieftain, who said to Jackson, "I am a man. Be a man among men," and insist upon the fact. Learn to say "I am." Feel that back of and under you is the great ocean of universal mind power, and realize that you are of and in this wonderful thing. Believe in yourself. Love yourself. Look out for yourself. I tell you, friends, I believe in you, every one of you, for I know what you are and what you have in you. And I want you to believe in yourself. I want you to say, "I," without being afraid. Don't be afraid to assert the I. Don't be afraid to say I. Say I until you begin to realize what a wonderful thing that I of you is. After all, recognize the ego as a center of power, and stop all this foolishness about being a worm of the dust. Don't be meek and humble like a Uriah Heep. On the contrary, stand up tall, with head thrown back, looking the world straight in the eyes without fear, and say firmly and positively, "I believe in myself." You've heard it said that God helps those who help themselves, and He does, unquestionably. But this is also true. God believes in those who believe in themselves, and so does the world, because God has made it so. So start in now, and say early and often, "I believe in myself." 10. Firmness. This term does not have to be defined. You'll know what it means. It is the faculty of stability, fixity, decision, perseverance, tenacity, manifestation of the determined will. Too much of it may make you mulish and stubborn, but very few of you have too much of it along the right lines. You need to develop it by the threefold method along the lines of putting your hand to the plow and looking not backward, sticking to your original plans despite the talk of others, resisting tendency to sidetrack you. This is the faculty that keeps the will to the task, like the chisel to the metal, until the work is done. Be firm as a rock, have a mind of your own, and hold to what you believe is right. See your object and march straight to it, firm in your determination and purpose. By all means, develop the faculty. of firmness. 11. Hope. This is the faculty of expectation and anticipation. It gives us one of the 3 features of success. Earnest expectation. You must believe in your success and must earnestly expect it. Cultivate hope and earnest expectation by all means. Be not a mere dreamer or visionary through excessive hope, but cultivate desire, then develop earnest expectation, then will to act. Each of these features is necessary to the great 3. Develop it by the threefold method, along the lines of looking on the bright side, visualization, looking aloft, not worrying, and belief in the efficacy of earnest demand accompanied by earnest work. Visualization is the greatest incentive to hope and earnest expectation. When you can see the thing done in your mind's eye, you have started to build in earnest. The rest is a mere matter of detail and work. 12. Mirthfulness. This is the faculty of humor. By all means, cultivate the sense of humor. It will save you from more follies, and cheerful spirit for it will make life easier for you, and will lubricate the machinery of work and endeavor. It will also make friends for you, and will tend to remove the obstacles which the world throws in the way of people who are sour, disagreeable, and grouchy. Smile, and the world smiles with you. Frown, and you get a frown. Develop this faculty by all means, by the threefold method, along the lines of humor, joy, and cheerfulness. And so, now I have called your attention to the faculties most prominent in the dynamic individual. I have not spoken of his religious or moral faculties, because these lessons are dealings with another part of his makeup. But do not imagine that the qualities named here have no connection with the religious or moral life. There is nothing that I have recommended here that will not apply as well to the minister as the businessman, to the priest as well as to the salesman. The same mental qualities that make a bad man great and strong will make a good man great and strong. Morals are one thing and degrees of strength another. Good men may be strong or weak. Bad men may be also be strong or weak. And in the degree of strength will be the degree of influence, for good or evil, that a man will manifest. With this in mind, I think that it would be a great thing for the world if someone were to distribute this book among the good men of the world. The evil men have a knowledge of the subject already. In closing this chapter, let me remind you that these mental states, cultivated and developed as I have shown you, will manifest themselves in your outward manner and demeanor as mental suggestion to those with whom you come in contact. The symbol will spring from the inner reality, and they will also manifest in the shape of currents of desire force and willpower, which will sweep far and wide, as well as near and close, influencing and affecting those within their field of induction. From these mental states will flow a strong stream of power which will tend to draw to you that which you demand and desire, and which will also tend to force and compel the things that you so will. You are a great center of power which radiates from you continually. Realize this and endeavor to charge that force with the best qualities and properties, that while you are asserting your own individual rights, you will still be doing something toward the great work of strengthening the race, to the end that it may produce more real individuals ready and capable of playing their part in the great drama of life on the stage of the universe. This talk is along new lines and is radical in the treatment given the subject. It is as meat for strong men and not milk for babes. There is no bromide or pink tea effects in it. It is vital, radical, and positive. Its message is strength. All truth that is worthwhile renders its possessor stronger. If any teachings cannot stand this test, discard them. Nature's law is toward producing strong individuals. Fall in with it, and nature will come to your aid, for then you will be one of its chosen ones. Fall in with the law of evolution. Do not run contrary to it. In the one case you are nourished, supported, strengthened, and encouraged. In the other you are relentlessly crowded out by the operations of the law. If you get one half the benefit from the study of this book that I obtained from the writing of it, you will be well repaid for your task. It is as a live wire charged with the elemental force, energy, and truth about certain occult natural laws. It contains a message for you, which I trust you will heed, for you need it. If you are an individual, this teaching is what you want. And the same is true if you are not one, but want to be one. But if you are a weakling and prefer to remain so, instead of rising and claiming your birthright of strength, your heritage of power, then by all means remain as you are and go your own way. Leave these teachings for the others of your brethren, who will not sell their birthright of power for the mess of pottage of negative content and sheep-like passivity, but who are boldly claiming their own and demanding their rightful portion. These strong brothers of yours, the individuals who are coming inheritors of the earth. I have tried to infuse my words with the strong, vital energy which I feel surging through me as I write out this message of strength to you. I trust that these words will act as a current of verbal electrons, each carrying its full charge of dynamic power, and I trust that each word will act to so fill you with the mind power that gave them birth, and will thus awaken in you a similar mental state, desire and will, to be strong, forceful, and dynamic, determined to assert your individuality in being and doing that which the universal creative desire and will is hoping that you will be and do. I send to you this message charged with the very dynamic vibrations of my brain as it transforms and converts the mind power into thoughts and words. I send it to you, yes, you, who are now listening to these words, with all the energy, force, and power at my command, to the end that it may pierce your armor of indifference, fear, and doubt, and I can't. And that, reaching into your heart of desire, it may fill you with the very spirit of individuality, conscious egohood, perception of reality, and realization of the I, so that from hence on your battle cry will be changed, and you will plunge into the thick of the fight, filled with a bazooka rage, like the Icelandic hero of old, and shouting your positive cry of freedom, I can, I will, I dare, I do. You will mow your way clear through the ranks of the horde of ignorance and negativity and reach the heights beyond. This is my message to you, the individual.